What are morals? Are they discovered or created? How do they relate to emotion? Are they merely expressions of emotion, or are they something else? Let's see what David Hume has to say. Let's talk about David Hume's emotivism. Where do morals come from? What are morals? Are they discovered or invented? David Hume lived in the 18th century. Right? He affirms the value of traditional morals, which he calls social virtues. As an Enlightenment thinker, he rejects metaphysical and biblical foundations for morals and seeks a purely rationalist, empiricist foundation for morals. So where do morals come from? Right? Ancient philosophy is going to say that morals come from the metaphysics of human nature. We're talking Plato and Aristotle here. Medieval philosophy adopts this as well and agrees that morals come from metaphysics of human nature, right? What is it to be human? And therefore that's where morals come from, but also adds on that God and the Bible give us some additional clues into what morality consists in. Modernism is going to say that morals are merely a social convention. Hume claims that morals are social conventions, but there is something even prior to this social convention, something even more fundamental to what morals are, according to Hume. Ethics is founded on something even more fundamental for Hume. Hume is responding to some prevalent ethical theories of his day. Right? First, we need to understand a little bit about Thomas Hobbes, who lived in the 16th century. He developed a political and moral theory on the idea that human nature, left on its own, is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Right? Humanity is thus driven by selfishness, and each human's absolute freedom is hindered only by other people. This is a pre-moral state, where individuals seek self-preservation by dominating others. Society is then formed with a social contract, where individuals give up some rights and freedoms to the government in exchange for protection from other people. Morality is thus a social convention that keeps people in check. All right, so morality is a social convention to allow us to come together as a society for safety's sake in this social contract. So that's where morality comes from, the formation of the social contract. Clever politicians within this society will define morality and with duties that will domesticate people, that will tame people into their service, and will flatter people into feeling like moral people. So, in other words, people who are in charge and in power will create these moral systems in order to keep people in line, keep people obedient, keep people in such a way where they will continue to function in society and serve society. And since these are taught as moral duties, when people fulfill these duties, they feel good. They feel like moral people, right? Interestingly enough, we're going to see a little bit of this crop up in Nietzsche later on in the course. Two general theories spin off of Hobbes. We have rationalist ethics, which says morals are based on rationalistic empiricism, the theory that all knowledge is derived from senses. Right? And then we have sentimentalism, which says that morals are expression of emotion. That's only important to first notice what's missing. Right? What's missing is Aristotelian ethics, where morals are based on the metaphysics of human nature, discoverable by human reason cultivated in community. So, in other words, and Christian ethics of the medieval period, which is going to be based on the Aristotelian ethic, it says that moral knowledge is incomplete without the Bible. Right? Hume, like other Enlightenment thinkers, considers Christianized Aristotelianism dead and buried. So he focuses his criticism on both rationalism and sentimentalism, but eventually develops his own sentimentalism known as emotivism. Emotivism is an ethical theory that regards ethical judgments as expressions of feelings of approval or disapproval, rather than reports of human nature. Here's a simple definition: morals are expressions of emotional preference. This begins a shift in thinking about human nature. The classical view holds that first there's a vegetative power in human nature. This is a, the ability to have life. This is just life that is shared with plants, animals, and humans. And then there's the sensitive power, sensation and emotion, which is shared among animals and humans. And then a distinctly human power is the intellectual power, that is to say, reason. This is why humans have been classically defined as the rational animal. So, what separates humans from animals is that we have reason, we have higher cognitive functionality. This is the classical view about human nature. In conclusion, reason distinguishes humans from animals and is the most important human trait. Therefore, since reason is the most important human trait, morals will have to express reason. We can discover morals through the use of reason. We can figure out what is wise by using rationality. But here's Hume's view. He says that emotion is the most important human trait. So morals express emotion instead of just reason. Morality is an expression of moral sentiment or feeling of approval or disapproval. Here's some things to think about. Remember the 5 elements of morality from a previous presentation that I have, relativism and objectivism. Relativism versus objectivism, or my video on why study ethics. Go look up those for a little bit more background on these 5 elements of morality. Right? They are that a moral system has to develop morals where the morals are these 5 things, namely that morals are prescriptive, morals are universal, they're overriding of other considerations, they're public, right? Anyone can know morality to some degree, and they are practicable. All right? Does emotivism compromise any of these? If morals override other concerns, can emotivism still make sense of our internal dilemma of choosing between what we want to do and we should do, right? Normally, when we think about morals, we have to override our emotion and sometimes do what we do not want to do in order to do the moral thing, right? So it seems that emotivism compromises on this overriding principle, element of morality. If morals are public, then how can private emotions be known by people I don't know, right? And so my emotions end up becoming obligatory for me, but not for you or for other people. And so morality is no longer a public thing, it's a private endeavor. In other words, if morals are opinions, in what sense can morality be universal, be a universal concept, right? Can any general moral principles still be universal, right? If we say, for example, that peace is more valuable than war and violence, immediately we're making a universal kind of claim. But according to emotivism, that uh, peace cannot be a description of reality or a universal concept. It is, at best, a private emotion. But then again, it can't be a universal private. It can be a universal and private at the same time, right? So is peace a universal moral principle or not? Is it just a moral sentiment, right? Or murder, for example, or rape. Are these things universally wrong, or are they just a matter of opinion? And so it seems that emotivism compromises on universality. Also, if morals are not overriding or universal, in what sense are they actually prescriptive? In what sense do they guide action? right? It seems like if if morals are simply an expression of emotion, then when I say that something is moral, that seems not to prescribe action, but excuse whatever actions I already do. In what sense do morals guide action rather than merely excuse action? If the other four elements of morality fail, is emotivism even practicable, right? So if it does not override any other considerations, if it's not universal or public, and if it's not prescriptive, then in what sense is it practicable? Here's some implications of emotivism. It is impossible to appeal to common rationality to convince someone to be moral. If they don't feel the same way, there's no convincing them. That's wrong just is the same thing as saying, I don't like that, and nothing more, right? Think about something that's really evil, like Hitler killing thousands and thousands of people, right? Just slaughtering thousands of Jews in the Holocaust, right? Millions of Jews in the Holocaust, right? When we say that's wrong, are we saying just that we don't like it? Or are we trying to say something more, something important, right, and meaningful about reality that just is wrong? Or torture, or rape, or needless violence, things like this. When we say that's wrong in emotivism, that's just the same as saying, I don't like that. When you tell somebody you should do the right thing, right? You should do this, you should do that. You should you shouldn't cheat. You shouldn't steal. You shouldn't murder, right? You should be generous. You should be loving. When we say that, then we are trying to impose our emotional preferences on somebody else, which is to say that we are expressing an individualistic tyranny of trying to force other people to conform to my sentiments. When I tell someone else that what they did was wrong or what they did was right, then my act of making that judgment, rape is wrong, for example. If I say rape is wrong, that is expressing my sentiment, and I am trying to force someone else to conform to my sentiment, right? So that's individualistic tyranny. I am trying to be tyrannical over them. The answer to who's to judge what's right and wrong becomes no one. Nobody can judge what's right and wrong, right? This ends up meaning that tolerance decays from what we want in tolerance, which is to say, civil exchange of disagreeing ideas on rational grounds. It decays from that into don't tell me I'm wrong, I can do whatever I want, all right? Tolerance becomes intolerant of talk about morality because such talk is seen as tyranny attempting to force me into someone else's sentiments, right? So tolerance becomes intolerant. Interestingly enough, I now see all moral systems that disagree with me as hostile to me, right? If you see every other possible system, if you see everyone who disagrees with you as hostile to yourself, that is the exact opposite of tolerance. So, tolerance, the modern conception of tolerance, is based off of Hume's emotivism, but it is also self defeating because his emotivism leads to us, each of us, thinking that claims about morality are individualistic tyranny. And so we end up saying, don't tell me I'm wrong, I can do whatever I want, and this leads to an intolerance. Tolerance is destroyed in the name of tolerance. Very interesting. Let's do the write-up on David Hume's Emotivism. Are morals invented or discovered? That's even more fundamental than the question about Hume's Emotivism, right? And I encourage you to watch my video on relativism versus objectivism to investigate more of the questions that go into this one particular question. Are morals invented or discovered? When you disagree with someone else's morals, is it for reasons or because it makes you feel good? For example, abortion, racism, gender roles, homosexuality. When we have these political kinds of disagreements, do we try to say, oh, this is why my idea is correct? This is why you should be convinced of my idea, right? Do arguments appeal to reason? Do moral disagreements appeal to reason? Or do people simply claim, this is what makes me feel good? Right? What makes sense of our common experience in terms of moral disagreements? Let's say you pay for a service, for example, phone or internet, TV, or house repairs. You pay for some service and you get bad service or no service. You call customer service saying, that's unfair, you should repair my service or give me a refund. Are you expressing emotion or are you appealing to justice? At the end of the day, we're trying to ask, why be moral? Why should you be moral? Right? And think also, if morals are simply an expression of emotion, then what's the difference between the way I feel and the way I should feel? Or what I like and what I should do? Right? Why be moral? What is moral? Is there anything left of morality? Does morality even exist anymore if it is indistinguishable from our emotions? Right? So I'll let you answer this. Why be moral?